Good afternoon. I am so happy to be here to celebrate promotions today. I'm Marge Greenfield, and I am your Master of Ceremonies for this ceremony. Our first speaker will be Dr. Cliff McGarrian to welcome everyone. I think this is a man who needs no introduction.
Thank you, Marjorie. And it's a huge pleasure to be here. You know, we have really done great over the past number of years, really with the help of Dr. Greenfield's shepherding of our candidates very carefully and closely with the department CAPTs and the medical school CAPTs, that we're having really amazing results in terms of our faculty getting promoted and deservedly being promoted in a timely manner. And we're just very proud. And frankly, I'm personally very, very grateful to Marjorie. I want to just say that from the start. When she came in my office 7-8 years ago and said, we need a dean of faculty to help them, and you are that person. So thank you very, very much. So I'm honored to be with you here today. We are, as you know, this is probably the pinnacle aspect of one's career, is to achieve the senior level promotions. But I think it's always important that we realize that these help us as we mature and advance in our careers, to help us with our mission. And our mission, as you know, is to heal. You've all demonstrated significant commitment to healing our communities and our patients through your expert and compassionate care. To teach, you've shown dedication to scholarship, to the teaching of the medical students, to the teaching of the residents, and the teaching of your fellow physicians and each other, frankly, which is embodied, I think, in the unwritten criteria for someone to achieve a senior level promotion. And to discover, each of you, in your own way, have pushed the accelerator really in advancing science, advancing clinical care, and working with your basic science colleagues, and even doing the basic science work yourselves, to give that hope to patients. When patients see research, whether it be clinical trial, basic science, and it's addressing particular disease states, that gives hope to our patients, and patients want to come. We are now the leading clinical trial house in all of Ohio. And I think it's very important for patients to know that this is a place to come, and you are driving that, many of you in this room. I think through this promotion, make no mistake, with great luxury and good things happening to you comes great responsibility. Through this promotion, you will serve even more now than ever before as role models for your peers, incentivizing them to work harder, to understand what it took for you to get this level of appointment. And remember, this is not easy. The CAPT at the medical school is objectively basing these decisions based upon how you stack up at other leading medical schools. This is a top-tier medical school, and it's tough, and you did it. You can congratulate yourself. I think this and these promotions specifically reflect the strength of our collaboration with Case Western Reserve University School of Medicine, a relationship that really dates back to the 1800s. Together, I think we have pioneered research, trailblazed new approaches, created leading-edge diagnostic imaging techniques, all sorts of new treatment modalities that each of you have been a part of. And it's that, if you will, army of brilliant physicians, academic physicians, that really allow these things to happen. I know we have infectious disease specialists celebrating with us tonight, but did you know that 124 years ago, right here at University Hospitals, Dr. William Corlett, dermatologist, was among the select group of physicians to test a new treatment for syphilis right here in this hospital, in the halls that you work. In 1907, Dr. Hoover coined the term Hoover sign that helped neurologists detect weakness in the legs caused, interestingly, by lung disease. For our surgeons who are being honored, it was 1910 that Lakeside, the Lakeside unit, developed, if you will, the earliest parts of the specialty of anesthesia, and was the first in the United States to manufacture nitric oxide gas, which began to replace ether, which was potentially dangerous. So walking these halls have been led by many, many people, our forefathers and foremothers. For the pediatricians being lauded, you may find it interesting that the preparations leading to the DPT vaccine were done by researchers right here at University Hospitals in 1946. I can go on and on. You get the idea. This is a very, very special place, and you're now moving into that realm. For nearly 160 years, our predecessors were inspired to heal, to teach, to discover, and the driving mission, I think, continues us to do all the things that we're doing, but you are really the triple threat, the people who can do it all. In turn, the work we do really spurs our community of supporters. You may have read in the paper today a new big gift to University Hospitals. These things happen because people look to this hospital, they look to you and say, that's where I want to put my money. For example, now it's out. The visionary $15 million gift from Iris and the late Bert Wolstein will create a state-of-the-art education conference simulation center, place for meetings, place for sharing of ideas right here on our campus. We sorely need it. Before introducing our next speaker, I want to give a special thank you to Dean Gerson, but also to Cynthia Kubu and Nicole Deming from Case Western Reserve University School of School of Medicine, and all the members of the Committee for Appointments and Tenure. I sat on that committee before I was chair. It's a lot of work, and you got to be objective, and you have to be emotionless at times because you want to do, but you have to follow the rules to keep up the legacy of now what is, it has always been one of the top tier medical schools in the United States of America. I also want to thank Dr. Dan Simon, and I also mentioned Marjorie earlier, as well as E. Fritz. I see E. Fritz helped walk me in. Nicole Bollinger, Abby Zona, as well as all of the members of the departmental committees for appointments and tenure, for your leadership and your guidance of those who today were successful in achieving this promotion. I also want to praise your families who are here with you today, your friends, because all of them at times had to take a back seat for you to be successfully promoted and to achieve your career aspirations. And I remember that was the biggest deal in my life when I got promoted, first to associate professor and then to professor, and I will never have a moment in my professional academic career that matched the way I felt that particular day, and I know you're going to feel the same way. I also need to thank our department chairs, many of them sitting here today, and the vice chairs of our departments who served as advocates for your career growth and served, I'm sure, to weigh in on your promotion. Also, as we celebrate tonight, I think as we remember our mission that continues to drive us forward, it has done so for nearly 160 years. We've been around a long time. Each of you, through your dedication, your passions, contribute to that legacy that is going to be going on for another 160 years. Our partnership with Case Western Reserve University has been instrumental in our journey. You may not know that when the Flexner Report, when there was a decision made around the United States in the turn of the century that medical schools really need to be partnering with a hospital to give the best place for students, and they decided med school should be 4 years. You should go to 4 years of college before you go to med school. That was a Flexner Report. One of the earliest models of that best performance, best in the business, was University Hospitals and Case Western coming together. In fact, that's what led to our campuses to being adjoined. One of the first Council of Teaching Hospitals. All that really is this long-term relationship. So let us continue. This doesn't stop today, but let's continue to push the frontiers, driven by your curiosity, to create a future for your patients, for this organization, for yourselves and your own personal legacy, to fulfill your goal, which I'm sure is mine, is to constantly recharge the ability to give hope, healing, and discovery. So now I'd like to introduce our next speaker, Dean Stan Gerson, my friend. He's a renowned physician and cancer researcher. He is the Dean of the School of Medicine and the Senior Vice President for Medical Affairs at Case Western Reserve. His research is focused on DNA repair mechanisms and his targets for anti-cancer therapy, stem cell biology, and the use of stem cells in multiple therapies, and has really been involved in his whole career in the development of early phase clinical trials for cancer. He's one of our own. He came from University Hospitals to become the dean. He's developed the no blood, no drug policy, requiring weekly blood counts that resulted in Sandoz Pharmaceuticals' receipt of FDA approval for clozapine, an effective antipsychosis drug. These are kind of the things that he has in his background. He became a member of the newly formed NCI-designated cancer center between UH and Case Western in 1987, rose to the esteemed position as director of our then Case Comprehensive Cancer Center. His transformative leadership was recognized by the exceptional Cancer Center status designation that we have received in the prior grant, and I'm sure we will achieve it again with the renewal. He served as chief of the Division of Hematology and Oncology at University Hospitals and the associate director of the clinical research of the Case Comprehensive Center in 1995, positions he held until he became then director. He's an elected member of the most prestigious physician scientist organization, the American Association of Physicians, and has served and chaired numerous NIH study sections, National Cancer Institute Board of Scientific Advisors. He's published more than 275 journal articles, 270 abstract, and many book chapters, and he has 19 patents. He graduated magna cum laude from Harvard College, received his MD from Harvard Medical School, and completed his residency and fellowship in hematology oncology at the University of Pennsylvania. And I could say I'm very proud that he's my dean and your dean, and I can say I'm very proud that he's a friend. So I'm going to turn it over to him right now.
Dr. Megarian, you've outdone yourself with that introduction. Just don't worry when I look at myself in the mirror. Everybody tells me I'm not getting any older, but I sort of see a little bit of aging going on. And I'm delighted to be a grandparent, looking forward to spending a few days at the end of this week at the Jersey Shore. So all things have their time. Now, it is the case, a couple of messages to all of you. First of all, I think it's fair to say that I've seen all of your careers since you arrived here in Cleveland to grow and prosper. I would reiterate the value of your department chairs in helping your careers move forward and how impactful they've been in directing and supporting. It's hard work. I really do appreciate the effort that it takes to move to the associate professor level and to the professor level. I have two children who one just went through and one's in the process of going through their associate professor, one at NYU and one at the University of Vermont. And I'm reminded that it's almost as much work to actually achieve all those goals as to write it down and ask for letters of recommendation and put up with it 14-month. I get that part, and we're trying to make it easier for all of you. When I tell the story every year, but I think it's worth telling, when I was awarded tenure and a professor status, my chair at the time was Adil Mahmood. And I said to Adil, okay, now what am I supposed to do? And in Adil's gregarious way, he patted me at the back and said, think bigger thoughts. So all of you heard from what Cliff has said are those bigger thoughts. How do you take leaps? How do you take the platform you've now built and expand it up? That's what all of your jobs should be. Let me also comment about Cliff, if I could. Cliff doesn't miss a meeting with me every month, and he certainly doesn't miss a meeting every other week or so with the university president. So he has really done an incredible job of making sure there's tight alignment between the goals of the school and those of the university with university hospitals. I'm going to switch your thought process just for 3 minutes about the School of Medicine and where we are and how all of you should and could be contributing. So to complement To Heal, to Teach, and Discover is the school's mission to improve global health by linking research to populations in a superb educational environment. And the school really now has an international reputation, as you know, the Technion, Oxford, elements of the Cleveland Clinic, et cetera. And this year, we're really going to target innovation. So when I look at the competencies and capabilities of some 3,500 full-time faculty across our campuses, it really is dramatic. And there really are opportunities for education research for all of us to contribute, interact where we see those opportunities. So the numbers, and we'll get to the individuals in a little while, but over the past year, 246 UH faculty were appointed as faculty from those who joined us as physicians. And there are, in fact, 2643 full and part-time faculty based at university hospitals. And the promotions, as you'll see, is 8 to professor, 27 as associate. What I want to engage you with, and many of you here are involved with one or more of our institutes and centers, and they really are the entities that drive innovation. We practice in our discipline of our department, but we innovate in collaborative programs and interactions. And the accomplishments you heard about the Comprehensive Cancer Center, but also Fabio, who has an incredibly long-standing Digestive Disease Research Institute, our Clinical Translation Research Collaborative, now led by Grace McComsey, one of the best in the country, one of the top scorers ever, and Jonathan Stamler and innovative work that he does through the Institute of Transformative Molecular Medicine. All these are high-class, engaged translational collaborators, and I would suggest you do your best to get involved. And look at all these other centers that we have, all with a link to faculty and physicians, research and clinical trial, and other clinical programs at UH. There's a 2.5-page list here, all opportunities for you to be involved and expand your own careers, as I said, to think bigger thoughts. And for emerging centers, AI, as you know, is moving fast and in a complex way, and we have 2 leaders on the biology side. We've just announced the Center for Mitochondrial Research, and frankly, I hope it emphasizes therapeutics. Glial Sciences with Paul Tizar, one of our stars, and Ken Remy, really pushing forward with the Heart, Lung, and Immunology Research Center. So why? So they are the engines for multi-investigator and large collaborative grants that become sustaining. The Cancer Center has been there for 30 years, it's CTSA for 18. So the Alzheimer's Center now in its second renewal. And they really provide transdisciplinary cross-institutional collaboration both here in Cleveland and even beyond. And they support many of our educational programs because they provide opportunities for research at every stage of our effort. And that's where our new therapeutics come from. And in this city, we can take advantage of multiple institutions participating and supporting the endeavor. So my approach to think bigger thoughts is to join a center. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Dr. Gerson and Dr. McGarrian. I like that idea of thinking bigger thoughts. I'm chewing on that now. So our next speaker, we have 2 speakers that are recently promoted faculty to talk about what it means to them to be promoted. And our first speaker is Associate Professor of Pediatrics, Dr. Amy Edwards.
Hi, everyone, and thank you so much to the committee for asking me to speak, and thank you to University Hospitals and to CASE for recognizing this exceptional group of people in front of us. So they asked me to talk about my unusual path to promotion. I don't know if any of you know me, but I first came to Rainbow in 2010 to do my pediatric infectious disease fellowship. And, you know, after coming here, UH in Cleveland became my home. And it really wasn't a hard decision to join the faculty in 2013 after I graduated. It's funny, you mentioned Grace. She was my division chief back then, before she became, you know, changed the world and internationally famous. But in 2019, after I had had my second child, she called me into her office and she said, you know, you've been here a couple years, you seem to have your feet under you. I think it's time to think about, what do those next steps look like? How could, what parts of your career are most fulfilling? What is it that you like about your job? And how could we then parlay that into a successful promotion packet and a lifelong career that you enjoy? With a goal, and yes, you're allowed to laugh, of submitting my promotion packet in 2020. And I thought I would share with you the broad outlines of the goals that we had set in that meeting and in the months after as we were brainstorming. So the first goal, with thinking about the different parts of my job, I had found that the part that I liked the most was infection control. And up until that time, I had only recently joined the pediatric infection control team. So I'd mostly been focused on learning and support roles and just trying to figure out how the whole world of infection control worked. And so my goal for 2020 was to step into more of a leadership role, both in existing initiatives and in spearheading work of my own. And an actual, because you're supposed to have these broad goals and then you're supposed to write like a very specific goal. So my specific goal, and please hold the laughter till the end, was to look at ways to help limit the spread of hospital-acquired respiratory viral infections in children at Rainbow. That went well. My second goal was less well-defined, but I had always been really interested in education, and I felt more robust education initiatives around infection control topics could help both physicians and patients. And then my third goal was to begin to find ways to get involved in professional organizations outside of Rainbow. And we all know how well that worked. And I will say, thank goodness I enjoy infection control. Although with multiple layers of my bosses here, I do have to admit that I went over my 40% FTE in infection control that year. Sorry about that. And yeah, 2020 didn't go as any of us expected. And I did not submit my promotion packet in 2020. I know that shocks everybody. But things weirdly have a way of working out. But I will say, when I envisioned myself as an educator, I assumed I would be focused on other physicians, other professionals in the hospital, and maybe a little bit on patients. But in the early months of 2020, education was just not a top priority. And when I was first asked to meet with reporters and answer some questions about the pandemic, I really didn't give it a lot of thought. I did it, I moved on, we were busy. But then as the months wore on, I added panel discussions, question and answer sessions hosted by libraries, community centers, news organizations. I attended press conferences with the Department of Health and Governor DeWine. And I was surprised when the thank you cards, started coming in from patients I knew, from patients I didn't know, from community members that I'm not even sure were associated with university hospitals. I even got one from Senator Brown, basically universally expressing gratitude for the information that I was providing and how it helped them make decisions for their families in a difficult time. And it's not the most typical means of education, but it was what was available, and the public was grateful. The importance of this work kind of started to become more clear to me after the election of 2020 started to create an environment that encouraged more distrust of science and experts in medicine. The spread of lies and misinformation exploded, and it's not an exaggeration to say that getting correct information to the public and pushing against some of that misinformation became a matter of life and death, especially through the vaccine rollout of 2021. I can say that the tone of the letters in my mailbox changed, and I started to get hate mail. I was accused, people called me names. I was accused, and I wrote this down word for word, of deliberately misleading the public as part of a nefarious worldwide scheme. And so much worse. People told me I was a horrible mother and that I was damaging my children, and it was rough. But now that COVID-19 has changed from an emerging threat to a routine but still dangerous part of our environment, my media appearances have become less frequent, though I still engage frequently, and we often cover a broad range of topics, not just COVID-19. Most of the hate mail has stopped, though I still get occasional thank you cards. But the rising mistrust of experts has not abated. Recent research by Pew's and other centers show that the percent of Americans that are expressing little or no trust in medical science has doubled since 2019. However, those same patients and people polled still report significant or extreme confidence in their primary care physician and local institutions to give accurate and scientifically sound advice. When I finally submitted my promotion packet to CASE, my education portfolio was a little different than what other people would probably have in their education portfolio. I did stress the importance of physicians as educators, but rather than focusing on medical students, residents, and fellows, I focused on our patients, their families, and the people in Northeast Ohio, and the time and effort I invested in educating them on vital topics important to their health and well-being. As I look forward to the next decade of my career, I feel that this is the area that I want to make my focus. In the current age of distrust and contention, it is incumbent upon us to not to wait for our communities to come to us for information, but to go to our communities and provide them with the information they need to make educated and thoughtful decisions about their own health. Many studies show that patient education is associated with better compliance, improved patient satisfaction, and improved outcomes. And there are amazing resources in place, from the Mayo Clinic's online library to the CDC's website. But as public trust in faraway institutions erodes, we have to step up locally and be that resource for our community. While daily patient care and infection control will always be an important and necessary part of my job, fighting back against the fog of lies and misinformation that seeks to harm my patients will be my driving force and will inform my career path from now until I retire and possibly after. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Edwards. That was awesome. I'm now going to introduce Professor of Orthopedic Surgery, Dr. John Sontich.
I am so humbled to be the presenter tonight of all these very smart people. You have an orthopedic surgeon that fixes bones. So I'm going to show you some fractures and bones, but I'm going to tell you and describe to you my journey and hopefully get some insight into your own journeys. The path is really different for all of us, but the destination is the same and the arrival time is now. So congratulations, everybody. I'm been doing this almost 30 years, so believe me, I took my time. So you have time, okay? It's a marathon, it's not a sprint, okay? And sometimes it's the journey and not necessarily the planning of the journey, okay? That would be my opinion. I graduated from a public high school in the 70s, okay? My dad said I had to go to Dartmouth because they got most of the people in medical school, and they happened to want me to play football there. So I graduated there, and really, they promised us all medical school. 9 of us started on the football team, 2 of us made it, okay? Gary Spiegelman and myself, he's a gastroenterologist in Miami, and he was a great fullback. Came back to the state of Ohio, where I'm from. I grew up in Youngstown, and really went to University of Cincinnati, and really what struck me at Cincinnati was the inner city trauma center. Loved the trauma center. I fell in love with trauma. Orthopedic trauma was really what I was interested in. I then went to the Cleveland Clinic, and 1987, I think I started. And really, the Cleveland Clinic doesn't do trauma. My 2 mentors were John, I'm spacing on his name. But anyway, Tracy Watson was really the person that I hung out with. He was a very young surgeon at the time. He was the traumatologist. And John Bergfeld was the head of sports medicine basically in the entire country. And he wanted me to do sports medicine, but I didn't do it. I liked it, but I went into trauma. And when I talked to Tracy, Tracy was, listen, I think Metro Health is a very good program. It's right across the city. It's up and coming. It's going to be one of the largest trauma centers in the country. And that's why I applied. And that's where I got in. And I really spent 22 years at Metro Health Medical Center. I say it was a fellowship every year. I learned every year. I mean, Brendan Patterson, I really stand on the shoulders of giants. Jack Wilbur. I mean, the group was fantastic. And we worked hard. We didn't have a trauma room. We had a trauma room, which was in the middle of the night. We worked just about every night we were on call, but we had a very, very good team. And it was there, they asked me, and back in 1989, when I was in Davos, Switzerland as a resident, I met Gabriel Abramovich Elizarov. He was a surgeon behind the Iron Curtain, because it came down in '89, that had done leg lengthening. And he had tremendous results of patients with infected legs and legs that didn't heal, and leg lengthening, all these people that came out of World War II. And he used to say the bacteria burn in the fire of the regenerate, because when you lengthen the leg, it turns on the entire body, but I had to go there. So they sent me there from Metro, and I spent 2 months in Kurgan, Siberia, not in Moscow. I hung out in Moscow for a while. And they really taught me a technique that really the Western society hadn't really discovered. And really, this was the turning point of my career. And I think everybody has a turning point in their career, where they make a decision where this is the direction I'm going to go. It was a good direction. So I was back at Metro. We had a lot of very injured, mangled extremity patients. I worked most of those patients. We did the bone transport procedure. We discovered a technique of computerized hexapod frame, where we stacked frame and lengthened it. We had even the plane dealer discovered us. But you know, what I would say is that I first joined the Cleveland Orthopedic Society in this point, and then I became the president, and then I became the president of the Ohio Orthopedic Society, and then I became the president of the Limb Lengthening and Reconstructive Society of the Academy. So work from the bottom and move up. It works very well. You meet friends, and really get a lot of work done. And in the meantime, I'm trying to raise my family as well, right? So my practice and my family were growing. We participated in the 2 largest orthopedic trauma DOD-funded studies, LEAP and FIX-IT, which were millions of dollars coming out of Desert Storm on limb salvage, and we were right in the middle of this with limb salvage. And then 20 years into it, Dr. Marcus and Dr. Majarian came to me, and they, you know, UH wanted to start a trauma center here, and they owned a lot of hospitals, and they really had a need for it because, one, people were dying trying to get to the west side with trauma, okay? And you know, we had rainbows. We needed a trauma center. So they recruited me. I can tell you the whole story, but it's too long-winded. Basically, in Etna restaurant, I went outside to answer a page. I came back. They wrote the stuff that I wanted on the contract, and I signed it. So I was able to bring in a team of young, very talented surgeons, all which I interviewed. They're all very academic. Rob Wetzel, Giorgio Cengeli, Josh Napora, and Brandon Gennard. Brandon is also an oncologist. A great team. It's all about the team. We were able to bring a traveling fellowship here from the LRS, where they travel and learn limb salvage and mangled extremity. And we put together a great team, really. We're the busiest orthopedic trauma center in the state now. We published over 100 articles just in the trauma literature. We established a premier trauma fellowship with Dr. Wetzel right here. He developed the fellowship. I developed a fellowship with traveling fellows, adult preservation, limb salvage, and we got busier, and we were busier in COVID than any other surgeons because we were the only ones operating, right? So you have to take care of the home team too. We took care of the home team, and 3 of my kids went to college, and I'm very happy about that. I got 2 more coming through. So an orthopedic trauma academic program starts with a team effort. Research is essential. Teaching trauma surgeons to the next generation is absolutely essential. Flexibility and resilient, and you have to treat all patients equally, even if the patient's a Grinch. Accomplishment will prove to be the journey, not the destination. Dwight D. Eisenhower. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you, Dr. Sontich. I want to just show a little bit of data on our progression in promotion over the years. We had a little bit of a dip this year, so this group is a particularly elite group with a smaller number. And we did include 4 people who came to UH and got promoted as they changed their position, so we're counting that as a promotion too. Before we invite everybody up, I wanted to join Dr. McGurian in thanking all the people that have been involved in promotion. It really takes a village to shepherd the faculty through the promotions process. The UH department chairs, the admins, the DCAP chairs, and the DCAP members, and Dr. McGurian and Dr. Simon for their unwavering support, and the medical school team, Nicole Deming, our intrepid Assistant Dean for Faculty and her team, Cynthia Kubu, Vice Dean for Faculty, and Dean Gerson, particularly for his work bringing our promotion processes into the 21st century, which is much appreciated. And then support for faculty, Nicole Bollinger, E. Fritz, and my right-hand person, Abby Zona. So now I would like to invite Dr. McGurian and Dr. Gerson up, and we will invite up the promotees so that you can shake hands and get your picture taken.
Where would you like us to stand?
Yeah, I think just right here is probably good, kind of more towards the middle. And then they will, yeah, I don't need to be in the picture, so I think right in the middle there will be good. So if we can get the people to start lining up. The first person I'm introducing, actually, yeah, that's good. Turn the light off, it's fine. Associate Professor of Pediatrics, Dr. Jill Azak. And take a picture. Great. No, you have to go back. Sorry. Associate Professor of Medicine, Deborah Bruno. Associate Professor of Medicine, Chang Chung Dang. You take a picture? Great. Associate Professor of Pediatrics, Elizabeth Dykroger. Associate Professor of Pediatrics, Dr. Amy Edwards. Associate Professor of Pediatrics, Dr. Stephanie Ford. Associate Professor of Psychiatry, Mary Gabriel. Associate Professor of Pathology, Aparna Harbhajanka. Associate Professor of Radiology, Dr. Daniel Herzka. Associate Professor of Associate Professor of Emergency Medicine, Dr. Robert Hughes. Associate Professor of Pathology, Dr. Megan Kapp. Associate Professor of Pediatrics, Dr. Ali Khalili. Associate Professor of Reproductive Biology, Dr. Sung-Tae Kim. Associate Professor of Medicine, Dr. Amanda Lathia. Associate Professor of Pediatrics, Dr. John Lozier. Associate Professor of Medicine, Dr. Thomas O'Neill IV. Associate Professor of Medicine, Dr. Aparna Padiyar. Associate Professor of Medicine, Dr. Reshmi Parameswaran. Associate Professor of Otolaryngology, Dr. Cyrus Rabbani. Associate Professor of Neurological Surgery, Dr. Abhishek Ray. Associate Professor of Reproductive Biology, Dr. Ann Semarco. Associate Professor of Pathology, Dr. Lisa Stempek. Associate Professor of Pediatrics, Dr. James Stranick. Associate Professor of Medicine, Dr. Benjamin Tomlinson. Associate Professor of Orthopedics, Dr. Robert Wetzel. Associate Professor of Pediatrics, Dr. Carolyn Wilhelm. Associate Professor of Reproductive Biology, Dr. Lulu Zhao. And now the professors. Professor of Surgery, Dr. John Amori. Professor of Dermatology, Dr. Brian Carroll. Professor of Neurology, Dr. Kamal Shamali. Professor of Pediatrics, Dr. Rachel Egler. Professor of Genetics, Dr. Craig Hodges. Professor of Radiation Oncology, Dr. Pranshu Mohindra. And Professor of Orthopedics, Dr. John Santich. Welcome. Professor of Radiation Oncology, Dr. Corey Spears, not able to be here today, so that is our list. Congratulations to everybody. Yeah. Can we have the, actually, it doesn't really matter. Dr. Simon was called away for an emergency, so Dr. McGurian is going to give his closing remarks.
Yeah, I'm speaking for Dan, and he would be, knowing Dan, he'd be exceedingly emotional right now in his pride for every one of you. As I said, and he would say, faculty promotion is really one of the greatest accomplishments and milestones in an academic physician's professional career. The promotion recognizes impactful, sustainable contributions in clinical research, educational activities that are truly distinguishing, and mark my words, you really have to be distinguished these days to get promoted. We're so proud of the 2024 class of 35 who've been promoted to these senior positions. Dan wanted to personally thank Dean Gerson, Professor Kubu, for organizing this memorable promotion celebration, and thank you again for this incredible partnership between our two organizations. Again, he wanted to remind everyone that we've been affiliated now 130 years, and I will speak for Dan and I that the affiliation, I think Dean Gerson is stronger now than ever. Promotion's not easy. The dedication, the commitment, the agility, the patience, as we heard from Dr. Sontich, is important. Dan wanted to mention that during his own academic career at Harvard Medical School and at CWRU, that is his belief that success is based on going from grant and manuscript rejection to rejection without the loss of enthusiasm. The COVID pandemic has impacted career development. We even heard the people putting, if you will, their applications on hold. Grant attainment, academic promotion throughout the country has been affected, but we're clearly back on track. And the success reminded Dan of a quote from Theodore Roosevelt, said, "Do what you can with what you have where you are." And I think that's what we've seen. Let's take a moment to thank each of your mentors, many of whom are here with you today to watch this celebration, and their invaluable guidance and support. Dan and I want to thank all of our chairs and institute leaders who fiercely defend, I think, UH's tripartite mission of healing, teaching, and discovering. And this record number of promoted faculties, there's a record number of promoted faculty over the last 3 years is not by accident. It's by really intentional commitment that we made with really Marjorie's leadership, the involvement of Dr. Maroney and Dr. Sasser before, Dr. Greenfield, Dr. Simon, Stathis, and Cianades to foster an environment where research, scholarly work, and innovation is supported and celebrated. And again, and I mean this, Dr. Greenfield is really our career development officer, and she's really been a major difference maker. Dan wanted to also thank Eve Fritz, as I have done, our Director of Operations for the UH Research and Education Institute, and for your team, Nicole Bollinger and Abigail Zoni. You cannot be thanked enough for planning this wonderful event and leading and working very closely. Dan also wanted to thank the families for celebrating with us today and providing love and support for our amazing new associate professors and professors. And he wanted to thank each of you because this senior faculty are UH's most treasured asset. I believe, and he believes. As you know now, the most sophisticated mechanism of ranking an academic medical system is by UK Brand Finance, and we're ranked number 14 in the United States and number 28 in the world. And that's because of you. It's because of the work that you do. It's because of the reputation. It's because of the clinical trials. It's because of the ability for patients to choose UH now for whether it be the Elizaroff procedures that was brought to the United States by Dr. Sontich, and there's many others that are innumerable to mention. So thank you for all you do. Onward and upward. Have a great evening.